I'm here in Peckham Square, an area where there's always a lot going on. That Tetrisy looking building just there is the Sterling Prize winning Peckham Library. The Sterling Prize being the top award in architecture in the UK. So back in 2000, the Sterling judges deemed Peckham Library to be the best new building. It beat out the London Eye, which was also on the shortlist that year. What do you think? Do you agree with the big cheeses in architecture? That Peckham Library is better than the London Eye? There's one for you to think about. And to my left here, we've got the swimming pool and leisure centre. Quite nice to see a leisure centre still fully in the hands of the Borough Council. You don't see that too much these days in London. Peckham Pulse, the name of that leisure centre. The implication being, I suppose, that we are right in Peckham's beating heart. Something that I often feel when I'm here. Often a bit of a fiesta atmosphere in Peckham Square, a place where you can expect to find people playing music, people hanging out, although I can't say that that is really the case at this moment in time, on this hot Tuesday afternoon. In fact, what I'm seeing instead is a huge number of cops, throngs of police. I've no idea why. But anyway, they are not going to interfere with the run that I've got planned today. And off I go. So as you can see, I've left Peckham Square behind me now, and I'm trotting along the Surrey Canal Walk. And as the name suggests, this path was at one time the Peckham branch of the Grand Surrey Canal. So this was a waterway from early in the 1800s right up until the 1970s. The history of the creation of this canal and its subsequent filling in very much connected to the history of industrial development in this part of London and its subsequent decline. And I'll definitely have more to say on that subject once we reach Burgess Park. But first of all, I want to pause and say hello and say thank you for watching. This is my first attempt at making a running video and putting it on YouTube, but it is something I've been wanting to do for a little while. I know there are other people out there making running videos, but I don't know if there's a huge amount out there that reflects what it is that I really get out of running. For me, running is not necessarily about going as fast or as far as possible. I'm not particularly interested in being in constant competition with myself or with others. Running, for me, it's really about getting out and about. It's about exploring, uncovering new environments, interacting with my surroundings, and just having really good thinking time. And that's kind of the approach, or the philosophy, that I'm trying to capture in this video and hopefully in more to come in the future. So as we run across London and beyond, we'll be stumbling over local history that I'm excited to share. But who knows what else we'll end up talking about. I'm keeping an open mind, I'm excited to see where it takes us. This little jaunt over to Burgess Park I'm seeing as a kind of trial run. I'm not coming into it with a huge amount of technical know-how with regards to the GoPro or the video editing software that I'm using, but I'm sure that will come with time. I welcome any and all tips if you've got experience using a GoPro. I'm reasonably happy with how the footage has come out, but I do wish I'd positioned the camera so that it was slightly more downwards facing. Something to keep in mind for next time, I guess. So we're now approaching Burgess Park. On my right you can see Glengall Wharf Garden. This is a community space that's completely volunteer run. You can see that they've been busy. There's loads of plants looking really healthy, vegetables being grown. They also use this space for all kinds of different workshops and events. I actually only went there for the first time fairly recently, a few weeks ago, for a fundraising event for Gaza, which was billed as a solidarity social. And I was just struck by how nice of a space it was. They've also got beehives. I think they keep chickens somewhere. There's a great big campfire in the middle. I think spaces like this are really valuable, particularly as places where people can practice growing their own food. These are skills which few of us living in cities have the resources and space to practice, especially with the number of allotments so limited relative to demand. I was also really pleased to see that recently Southwark Council have put some money into Glengall Wharf so that a community plant nursery can be housed there. So the nursery will be home to lots of seedlings that will be given, I think for free, to anybody in Southwark wanting to grow their own food. So this garden is now the home of a service that can benefit the whole borough. Great example of motivated community members and a local authority working together in a really positive way. So I've now reached Burgess Park. I'm cruising along this path, which, you guessed it, this used to be canal. I'm heading west, just as I would have been if I were a 19th century barge travelling towards one of Camberwell's many factories. Among them, the original R. White's lemonade factory, which opened in Camberwell in 1845. If I were to follow the Grand Surrey Canal to the east, it would take me through Bermondsey before taking a sharp turn to the north, where it would meet the Thames. Traces of the canal survive in certain place names. So you've got a stretch of the canal that's now a road, Surrey Canal Road, that goes past the Den, home of Millwall Football Club. Then, where was the basin that linked the canal to the Thames? Well, that's in the place that we now call Surrey Quays. Another clue to the history of this canal that connected all these industrial hubs of South London. And I'm just going to come off the main path for a min and zigzag through the St George's Way copses, lovingly maintained by the Friends of Burgess Park, just because it's nice to be among the foliage. So Burgess Park, despite being Southwark Borough's largest park, is also one of its youngest. The area now taken up by Burgess Park was, for a very long time, a densely built-up area. Within that you did have housing, but much of it was taken up by industry, by factories. Among them you had factories manufacturing bricks, you had paper factories, but this area was badly damaged during the Second World War, and it was decided that it wasn't worth the cash needed to revive these industries. The national picture was one of de-industrialisation anyway. Just approaching Burgess Park's famous Bridge to Nowhere now, probably the clearest sign you'll find that there, used to be some water here. So they pretty much razed the whole lot and carved out what was to become a much-loved and well-used green space, Burgess Park. To my right, you've got a fairly hostile-looking green wall that tells you that a big chunk of the park has been cordoned off for a festival. The surface plastered with the same message again and again. Ceasefire now. One of the legitimate functions, I think, of public space is to serve as a canvas onto which people can transmit messages and make noise. It's a little subversive, perhaps, in a good way, I mean. That rather intrusive and antisocial barrier has been transformed in parts through a small rebellious act into a vital call for peace. While I was running along, I saw some other scrawled messages that you can see here. So at least one person has felt strongly enough about the Carnaval del Pueblo that they've decided to make their feelings known. So the Carnaval del Pueblo is a huge festival that's held annually of Latin American culture that's centred on Burgess Park. Burgess Park is located in an area where there are large communities of people of South American heritage. Now, I don't know if this festival is considered divisive, if there is an ongoing debate surrounding, the way that the festival is run. I couldn't find out very much about that online. It is possible that the author of these messages of protest holds a minority view, I don't know. But considering part of what I want to do here is find voices and find stories, and whoever this person or group of people are behind this little protest, they've been quite persistent, so I wanted to draw attention to it. Ooh, and we've got another prominent Burgess Park landmark to the right here. That's the old lime kiln, which is an industrial relic. So that was used for the production of quicklime, which is a component of mortar, so a really important building material. I think we can say with confidence that there will be a fair number of houses in the surrounding area stuck together with quicklime originating from that kiln. It's essentially a furnace that you put limestone in and make it very, very, very hot, and that's how you produce quicklime. The limestone, of course, would have got here via the canal. So I've just leapt ahead now to the western edge of Burgess Park. Very nice little cafe on my left there. You can get a really banging toasty there. The little enclosed patch just coming up on my left is Addington Square, which is actually the oldest part of the park, predating the rest of the park by well over a century. This would have been a tiny little oasis of green within the smoggy urban sprawl, but access to the square would have been reserved for the occupants of the nice, big, spacious Georgian terrace houses that surround it, the desirable homes of the factory bosses. And now perhaps the most exhilarating portion of my run today, as I ascend this little hillock, just giving myself a little bit of altitude, a little bit of a vantage point from which I can see to my left the modern high-rise residential blocks that make up Walworth's southern frontier. And to my right, of course, I can look out over Burgess Park in all its glory. I hope that my footage does justice to the abundance and variety of plant life that you've got along these mounds running parallel to Albany Road. You might be able to make out some flecks of blue and yellow among the long grass. These are the flowers of chicory and wild rocket, respectively. You might be forgiven for looking at all this healthy flora along these mounds and simply seeing that as a sign of nature doing its thing. But I think it would be more accurate to call this the result of a collaboration between Mother Nature and some very hard-working gardeners here at Burgess Park. Whilst doing my research for this video, I ended up on the blog of Burgess Park's head gardener, Greg Smith. Greg's detailed chronicling of his work shows us how the thriving meadows on Burgess Park's north edge are the result of lots of experimentation with planting and cutting and paying close attention to this area's natural course of evolution over the last several years. All the more impressive considering you're hardly working with the most nutrient-rich soil here. Pretty much what you'd expect given the park's history as formerly built-up land. I mean, those mounds that I've been running across, apart from the thin layer of turf at the top, I think they're pretty much just piles of rubble underneath. So, really impressive that they're now home to so much life. I also learned from the Burgess Park website that the gardener Greg Smith, from whose contributions to the website I've learned a lot about Burgess Park, and particularly its flora, actually passed away in December of last year. A man who was obviously deeply committed to the park, so I've no doubt that's a great loss. And coming up now to the old municipal baths. Still within living memory are the times when ordinary people did not have their own washing, bathing facilities in their own homes. People would come to public baths like these ones, making bathing almost a kind of community activity. My friend Eleanor has written a wonderful little piece about public baths. Baths as a place of community, intimacy and care. She talks about the intimate act of bathing. I start to imagine, she says, what would happen if this intimacy could be collective, if there was an infrastructure for public washing, spaces where I could go to and melt and sweat and wrinkle up among fellow bodies, if it was the norm to go and celebrate the act of washing together. Okay, looks like I'm going to have to rethink my route a little bit, because I can see some lorries blocking the way of the path I was going to take. We've once again run up against the area that's been cordoned off for festivals. You can see they're in the process of taking everything down now. So I think over the weekend just gone, on the Saturday, this area was host to a house and techno festival called Maiden Voyage. Then on the Sunday, it was the Carnaval del Pueblo that I mentioned earlier. I am sympathetic to the criticisms that some people have towards these festivals that are popping up more and more in London's parks, making a lot of this supposedly public space inaccessible to the general public over the summer months at the time when these parks should be at their busiest. I mean, something like the carnival that's free to enter and, notionally at least, has an ethos of celebrating the community, I think is more justifiable. But I can totally understand why people might roll their eyes at another electronic music festival. I mean, half of London's major parks have some kind of electronic music festival at some point over the summer. That being said, I do think Burgess Park is large enough that it can accommodate a festival and still have lots of recreational space and semi-wild space that's remaining untouched. And it would be somewhat hypocritical of me to completely condemn the use of parks for music festivals, given that I have attended festivals like that in the past and quite enjoyed myself. Actually quite interesting to see it all in the process of being taken down. We're now coming up to Burgess Park Lake, and it is such a treat to be running alongside this magnificent body of water. It's been observed by many people before me that being around water does seem to make us feel calmer, does seem to make us happier. There's a whole body of research examining the positive psychological effects that you can get simply from being near water. Personally, yeah, I feel that calming effect big time. Now, naturally this lake is man-made, even if nature has kind of taken hold now. My sources tell me that when the lake was created in 1982, it was done using the world's largest plastic sheet lining. So that's a fun fact for you. Today, of course, it's home to lots of waterfowl. 3 different types of geese can be found on this lake, and you see herons about as well. Crossing over the lake now via this bridge, and I'm being hit by a gentle breeze that's actually so refreshing at this point in the run. I feel flipping on top of the world. So that brings me to the final little stretch of my run today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please let me know what you thought. All feedback will be really useful and massively appreciated. Do you know something about Burgess Park that I didn't mention? If you do, let me know. Would you like to see more videos like this? Where would you like me to go next? Maybe I'll see you again soon in another part of London. But until then, it's goodbye from me. I'll see you later.